Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with Mark Penn, Chairman and CEO of Stagwell Inc., also Chairman of Harris Poll. Mark, good to see you. Let's start with the latest poll that came out. Some intriguing numbers in terms of the mood of the country.
Well, the mood of the country continues to be sour. People are unhappy with the economy. They're unhappy with their own lives. They're still riveted on inflation, concerned about immigration and crime. These are not good numbers for President Biden, who's seeking re-election. But there is a little green shoot here, in that there's a little uptick over the last 4 or 5 months in terms of people who see the economy strengthening. So if he can keep that going here for another 4 or 5 months, then he'll get to a place where at least the economy could be a draw. Although right now it's a big negative.
I want to drill down on the political impact, but just from a semantics point of view, people are sour on the economy, but yet when you look at the optimist pessimist divide, it would appear that they are more optimistic about their own lives. Am I making too much of that, or is it overall generally a negative outlook?
Well, no, I think I have a chapter in my book Microtrends called Happy Pessimist,
Mm-hmm.
which is that it's a certain mode that Americans like to get into, in which, on the one hand, they're optimistic about their own life. On the other hand, they're pessimistic about the country and everything that's going on in the larger environment. I think here you see some optimism. I've seen higher levels of optimism. You see, however, 49% saying that their economic situation is deteriorating. So I think optimism is tempered here with some realism that people are still feeling the effects of inflation primarily. And that's really how they're viewing the economy, even though inflation may be abating, the job numbers are good. And in fact, retail sales continue to be good. So the economy itself is better than people think it is. They're spending more than they think they are. And how this is going to change or converge in the next 6 months will determine whether or not we pivot to genuine optimism, or this kind of mixed feeling I think that voters have now.
To your point, the economy is looking pretty good, all things considered. Is it a lagging indicator how people feel about it, or is it usually more of a, I hate to say canary in the coal mine, but more of something of what's to come? I mean, just again, this disconnect between the reality of what's happening in the economy and how people feel about it. 'Twas ever thus.
No, definitely public attitudes towards an economy is a lagging indicator. The stock market will generally go first. The public will come on only grudgingly after they've got to stand on the ice before they believe they're not going to fall in. And I think that typically that's what I see. I've seen it too in the political life that it takes an administration about 6 months after you get some decent numbers to start to really change attitudes towards the economy, and that attitudes towards the economy may in fact have nothing to do with the reality of the economy. The perceptions of the economy are driven by the news very frequently, except if unemployment is really high and your friends are lost their jobs. That will give you personal experience. Or when you go to the store or the pump, and the pump is getting better, the store is still pretty high priced. That's what's driving a lot of attitudes here.
What about the housing market?
Well, get a mortgage if you can.
Very
Uh,
true.
I think that the interest rates going up, but remember now we have maybe interest rates are going to come down. That'll bring mortgages down. Gas prices have come down. Inflation has come down. As bad as things seem today, wow, things seemed, if you go back in the stock market maybe 30 days ago, things looked like they were going to fall off a cliff
Yeah.
before they turned around. I think that there's some definitely, I hate to use this cliche, green shoots, but there are definitely some green shoots here. Whether or not they really develop or not, well, that's something we're going to have to see over the next 4 to 6 months.
So in this, you have also the support attitudes toward Biden, toward the Democrats. I mean, in general, how does this, since these are green shoots, does that bode well long term heading into an election year, or what are you seeing? What would you be looking for?
Well, right now you'd say Biden's the underdog. Trump is ahead in virtually every national poll. He's certainly ahead in our poll by 4 or 5 points.
Yep.
Even more when Robert F. Kennedy is put in there. Certainly, the ratings Biden has, he's seen as by most people as too old. 72% said that they didn't think he would serve the entire serve the entire term, and so he's kind of working against a bad issue environment, questions about his personal fitness for office. I mean, this is about as difficult a campaign as you get, but he is running so far against Donald Trump, who most people also thought should be convicted of crimes. So you can choose the one who's too old and who you didn't think did a good job, or the one who you thought did a good job. And actually, most people said in the poll that they thought they were better off under Donald Trump, but who they think is potentially a criminal. So it's why most people say they like another choice.
Faustian pack. I mean, I don't know if you're in a position where you can advise, but having advised, presidential candidates, presidents in the past, would this be a case for Biden potentially stepping aside, just given the persistent low rating? I think it was 43% this month. What's the end game for the Democrats under this scenario?
I never advised anybody to pull out. I always advise people to stick it out and change the dynamic. I think Biden should make a compromise with the Republicans on immigration, get his aid for Israel and the Ukraine passed, and take immigration off the table, because immigration right now is, outside of inflation, maybe the one other issue that's really dragging him down right now. So my best advice would be make that compromise, get immigration off the table, and perhaps you're going to be able to continue to ride into a genuine soft landing here, which will put you back in a position of potential victory.
And the leading candidates who could potentially step in right now, Kamala Harris is still at number one. I guess that's logical. I was intrigued. Then Hillary, Bernie Sanders, Gavin Newsom. Should we make anything of that, or is that just these are the names we know and we'll toss them out in the event of being asked?
Harris has a slightly growing edge in these numbers, but still 28% is nothing that couldn't be defeated. If she had 40% or 60% as a second choice, then you would say, she would definitely be the one. I think she comes in with an edge over everybody else, if there is one. But right now, frankly, I wouldn't speculate too much of that. I think that you're more likely to see Donald Trump have a real contest in the primary, as unlikely as people think it is, and be challenged by either DeSantis or, more likely now, Nikki Haley, with some kind of strong showing in New Hampshire that sets off a real primary race. So I don't see Biden stepping aside, pulling out, doing anything. He's got the party machinery and a unified Democratic Party behind him. He's just got to improve his presidency. Trump, on the other hand, I think could face a primary here. Let's see where we go in the next 30 to 45 days.
So let's move on to some of the kind of macro environment, especially what some of your clients are asking you about, Mark. Let's talk. You've spoken about this year being the year of efficiency, moving into the year of competition. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think what happened is the tech companies at the beginning of this year said, let's put the brakes on everything. Let's trim down our employee workforces. Let's stop our programs. Let's reconsider what we're doing. Then somewhere along the way, AI came along, and wow, this is an entirely new, not new technology, but a leapfrog in that technology that suddenly enabled the companies to now begin applying AI technologies, to generally computer communications, to analysis of words, to getting answers to questions, to really streamlining industrial processes. And it opened up a panacea of potential new technological innovations. And you know what? Now the companies have to do the opposite, which is to get going here. And no one owns AI. Microsoft doesn't own it. Google doesn't own it. Startups don't own it. we're going to see a real competition here. Typically, what we've seen before is someone owns Windows and Office, somebody owns search like Google. Nobody owns AI. Nobody owns the cloud either.
You don't
And
think
so,
ChatGPT gives a big advantage to Microsoft as the kind of main investor there? Or is that, I'm talking about large language models and generative AI, but you think it's still very much an open playing field?
it's an open playing field because Google has a vast storehouse of
Right.
data. All people do all day long is ask Google questions. And so the ability for Google to play in there against Microsoft and for everybody to use its models. Remember, I think NVIDIA is going to make the chips.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's got to have the cloud. And I think that there's more competition now for the cloud that becomes a little bit more commoditized. And then somebody's got to make the applications and get the applications out. I think Microsoft is really poised with Copilot, probably better than Bard, but nobody owns it. And remember, there are going to be two different business models here. Bard may be more advertising supported, and Copilot is subscription supported.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an open marketplace here, an open marketplace in which the tech companies are going to have to spend billions and billions of dollars to get customers. That is why I call it the year of competition. I think NVIDIA's got out there with the chips, but then if you notice, Intel's not doing too badly. Some of those that you did counted out before are coming back. As I say, the competition for the cloud is really heating up. We at Stagwell made a partnership with Google on AI products and usage of AI cloud, and I think we're the applications here have yet to be written and yet to get into the marketplace, and that's going to happen in the next year or two here.
So we'll really see some of the use cases come. There's been a lot of rhetoric, obviously, this year. Some use cases, but it seems there's less paralysis and more clarity now in terms of how people are moving forward. Are you seeing that?
Well, I think people needed 6 to 9 months to figure out, how does this affect my industry, right? How does it move me closer to self-driving cars? How does it create a new shopping experience? How does it create a new way of journalism or creating videos? I mean, I think people first had to ask the question. Second, they had to look at how feasible it was to apply the technologies. We have a product called Profit that writes your news release for you,
Mm-hmm.
and then figure out who's going to cover it, and then places the news release. So I think people now are saying, okay, here are some of the applications. I think they're just beginning to get going. I think by mid-year, this is going to be a really hot marketplace.
Let me ask one other thing. Mark, you and I have spoken in the past about, I see you very much as a bridge between sort of the red state, blue state, how people navigate the political environment. Geopolitics has taken a much larger role in terms of impacting business. We've seen it with, the reactions to the Israel-Hamas war. And I'm hearing more conversations about a segregation of corporate America with regard to people both choosing to work in a place that has their political beliefs aligned, or just this sensitivity around how we bring politics into the workplace. I don't know if you've got advice about this or observations, but I think there's a real concern on the part of managers and leaders as to how do you navigate this world where people bring their whole selves to work and it's sensitive.
Yeah, well, we've created a risk and reputation unit, and I tell people, you got to have, if you want to analyze these kinds of political in business issues, you got to have a Democrat, you got to have a Republican, you got to have somebody who knows investor communications, and you got to have a polling capability. You have to look at your various stakeholders. You have to look at your own brand, because some brands are positioned to fit into the political environment, and many brands are not. Remember, if you're a whole mass brand, you don't want to be involved in politics because you're getting 70-80% of the market, or drawing from 70-80% of the market. And the day you're involved in politics, you can only have access to half of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a niche brand with 4 or 5%, you don't care. Maybe you'll do somewhat better if you just have some fans. So I think these are very difficult to navigate, but I wouldn't overdo this notion that people are so concerned about politics in terms of their their job. A lot of this is driven by activists, and it's also driven, I think, in the poll shows, by a younger generation in the 18 to 24 that has been sensitized to this in a way that, they're just getting out in the world. And when they get a larger sense of the world and more experience, their views on things often change. In
Once
fact,
you
they
get a
almost always.
paycheck, right? That can change everything. Is there anything else on your radar, especially as we look ahead to 2024, that you'd want to put on our radar right now in terms of what you're looking at?
No, I think in terms of politically now, you've got the tension that American voters are really concerned about inflation themselves, the economy, how they're doing, how they're going to do, and yet, foreign affairs, and we showed really a lot of support for Israel, with the exception of the 18 to 24 group, where we saw dramatically, different findings. And so you do see this kind of conflict here between, we're really concerned about ourselves in America, but wow, there's stuff going on in Israel and the Ukraine, so I guess we're going to have to be involved. And about
Hmm.
2/3 of the people say we're going to be involved. And then you see a split between the older and the younger generations in terms of what they believe. And I think this whole split about what's going on in college campuses and university presidents is also something fascinating. When I think the university presidents really did fail to speak out clearly about genocide against Jews, and the poll that we're releasing shows definitively that most people think they should resign.
So if a Claudine Gay does not resign, that could create problems for Harvard? Or is that too? Because we've already seen one of the three. We've seen one resign, or be ousted, depending on how you look at it. But the other two continue to have their jobs. Does that mean this
Well,
issue is not going to go away for them?
as a Harvard alum and
I know.
someone who did teaching, I'm going to defer, talking about a particular president. What I'm going to say is that the country sees this difference here between the elite institutions and in the poll of an ideology of oppressor or oppressed to be very kind of apart from the way that they experience life, or want merit and accomplishments to drive things. And so there is this kind of conflict here that you're going to see, and I don't know how it's going to come out, right? But certainly I think you have now here a significant push for reformation in the universities, and you see a lot of the university presidents pretty much, now, which, university president typically is a uniting figure. It's a key part of the job, is to like bring all your stakeholders together, keep the faculty happy, the trustees happy, the alumni happy, generally get more money from everybody, build a bigger institution. It's like anything else in the risk and reputation. The minute they get caught in a political vice, then 50% of their constituency is gone, just like what happens if you're a product today.
Hmm.
And I think that's now happening with the universities, when they didn't take strong, clear, immediate stands, against the terrorism and barbarism of Hamas.
Yeah. No, very much so. And I think you're right. This issue is probably only going to get stronger. Certainly, the conditions in the Middle East would suggest the conversation will continue for some time. So, thank you for joining us, Mark. I look forward to continuing the conversation with you, and also continuing to check those poll numbers. So, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.